all of you lovely cat aspirants. Like always, I will begin with a short tete and ask you how are you guys doing. Now, we did discuss this previously, and my intention to ask about your well-being is genuine and it comes from a very good place. My name is Suyukti Mam. For most of you already know, but anybody who's viewing in new, I am a verbal and a critical faculty here at Top Rankers. And continuing on the series that we've been doing, we bring two very exciting, two very blockbuster genres for you guys today, namely science and technology and philosophy. The kind of information that cat likes to revolve around is into a lot of opinions around the genre rather than just the factual content, because they try to ensure or they try to keep a check on how well are we able to blend into the perspective of the author and acknowledge it righteously. That is an art, and that is a hard art at that. It's not very easy. It's something that only comes in when you become a veteran with reading comprehensions, which gets me to, I'm sure I've done the plot building, the base building, which gets me to doing the reading comprehensions on daily is paramount, is indispensable, is something that you have to be doing, plus your reading of the articles. Now, our attempt is to be able to browse you and to be able to acquaint you with multiple genres that we have so that you are never stuck with surprise or you're not at the back foot of your performance while being able to decode what is it that the passage seems to be about. So the first passage that we're going to be doing today revolves around science and tech, and the second is around philosophy. So without any further ado, let us begin with what we have. First things first, of course, I am going to walk you through the idea of the passage. We will discuss that at length, move on to the questions, see why an answer and why not. And with that, let us begin. Now, artificial intelligence, AI, yippee. The first passage is about AI. Not that we are very surprised, because I think the moment you speak science, the first thing that pops in your mind nowadays is AI. So this is, of course, this was quite expected, but let's see what does it have for us. Artificial intelligence, AI, might have the potential to change how we approach tasks and what we value. So it begins by talking about the fact that it might really have that potential, to be able to change the way we come across tasks and how we tend to be valuing it. If we are using AI to do our thinking for us, employing AI might atrophy our thinking skills. Now, atrophy contextually we understand over here is going to limit, because if we are using AI or if we are letting AI do the thinking, then obviously हमारी thinking skill क्या कर रही है, rest कर रही, chill मार रही है. So this is to limit or to decrease. Now, whenever it comes around words, guys, always remember contextual meaning goes the long way. So it is from the line that I introduced the idea to it. I did not Google and nor did I know the meaning, to be very honest about it. The AI we have at the moment is a narrow AI. It can perform only selected specific tasks. So currently the kind of AI that we have is not very abundant. It's pretty narrow. And even when an AI can perform as well as or better than humans at certain levels, it does not necessarily achieve these results in the same way that humans do. And even if AI can really do it, it can never do as well as or achieve the results that humans can do. One thing that AI is very good at is sifting through. Sifting is channa. So to be able to sift through masses of data at great speed, of course, that's laborious. ये humans नहीं कर पाएंगे, but AI इसको बहुत अच्छे से कर लेता है. Using machine learning and AI that's been trained with thousands of images can develop the capacity to recognize the photograph of a cat. So if there are thousands of images and you keep feeding it by saying this is a cat, later it will automatically, understand the idea that this is how a cat is. But humans do this very differently. But that's not how it works with humans. A small child can often recognize a cat by just one example. You show it a cat once and the mind registers. For an AI, you'll have to keep doing that as a repeated action. Because AI might think differently to how humans think, and because of the general tendency to get swept up in its allure, its use could well change how we approach tasks and make decisions. And because it is so attractive, it's very glamorous, it feels as if it's going to lessen your work, we get very attracted towards it. The seductive allure that tends to surround AI in fact represents one of its dangers. In fact, this is what is, यही तो गड्ढा खोदना हुआ, यही तो एक danger हुआ. Those working in the field despair that almost every article about AI hypes its powers, and even those about banal uses of AI are illustrated with killer robots. So the ones who are within the field of it are sort of, they're very agitated about this, with the kind of hype that has come around AI. कि इतना बैलीहू क्यों मच रहा है उसके बारे में. And even the most banal of them, banal basically means ordinary, उनमें भी ऐसे killer robotic skills दिखा देते हैं that you really feel that oh my, what is this happening. The impact of technology on shaping our values is well established. Of course, technology has shaped a lot. At the recent roundtable discussion on the ethics of AI, the group I the group I was in spent most of our time discussing the well-known example of the washing machine, which did not simply take over the laundry, but which had a major impact on attitudes to cleanliness and housework and on the manufacture of clothing. So now this example that was being taken has been around the fact that there has been the washing machine that's been taken about. And then it says it did not simply take over the laundry, which has had a major impact on attitudes of cleaning and housework and on the manufacture of clothing. So they go about by saying, I mean, maybe towards the extent what the machine can do is, download the clothes, wash it for you, maybe do all of those kinds of things. But it will still never give you that value of cleanliness. That's not something, because that's not inbuilt for an AI altogether. Because AI is designed to contribute not merely to the laundry, but how we think and make decisions over an indeterminate number of tasks, we need to consider seriously how it might change our own thought and behavior. And because it begins by saying AI is designed to contribute, it is designed in such a way that it is to contribute, not just for laundry, of course, but to how we think and make decisions over an indeterminate number of tasks. Indeterminate is what you can't determine. We need to consider seriously how it might change. So you have to begin to think that it really has a potential to be able to change your thought and behavior. It's important to remember that AI can take many forms and be applied in many different ways. So none of this is to argue that using AI will be good or bad. So it has a lot of forms. It can morph into a lot of, good work. So we can't really go about titling it, okay, this is good and this is bad. In some cases, AI might nudge us to improve our approach. A lot of times AI might even nudge us that, this is the way you can improve. But in others, it could reduce our atrophy, our approach to important issues. But in other cases, of course, it's going to reduce. So AI has got a yin and a yang, right? It's got the good and the bad. It might even skew how we think about values. And ultimately, because it will begin to have a cultural difference on us, it is also going to begin to skew how we think. We can get used to technology very swiftly. Change, blindness, and fast adaptation to technology can mean we are not fully aware of such cultural and value shifts. So there's a change blindness. I mean, things change and we're blind about it. And of course, then there is fast adaptation. Because of this, what happens is our value, our belief system also begins to change. ये सब चीजें ध्यान में नहीं आती है. For example, attitudes to privacy have changed considerably along with the vast technological shifts in how we communicate and how data is shared and processed. For example, let's just speak about privacy. Things have changed. On the very things driving progress in AI is indeed the vast amount of data now available. Much of it is us collected as we go about in our daily life. And if you actually talk about AI, a lot of things that it depends upon is the data, the very data that we collect, we give. Many people are extremely wary of the organizations that have control of our data, while nonetheless continuing to post large amounts of very personal information that even a few years ago would have been considered private. So there are people who are very conscious but still go about doing it. I mean, if you are, then stop doing it. But there are people who are still going about doing it, which until a couple of years back, they always thought was pretty private. Research shows that people's concern about data privacy are inconsistent from one situation to the next. Research has also shown that it is the people's concern that keeps changing. This is not to say that technology alone has done this, since there are always other social changes operating. So you can't really put all the blame on technology. There are, of course, other sources also that have been doing this. And perhaps we are especially blind to the effects of some technology because it does so much to shape how we see the world. And then we become blind to technology because we fail to see what all has changed. The challenge of AI is that it might operate in ways we aren't fully aware of. And that's where the real challenge begins, because we might not really know how much or how aware are we of the changes it gets. So it's about the good and the bad. And ultimately, the author has this, cautionary tone all throughout that you use it. That's what technology is for. but be mindful as to how you are using it. Let's get to the questions and see which of the following is going to be the correct answer. Now, which of the following conclusion can be drawn from the passage? So if it has a conclusion, I need something which is color coded, both good and bad. Because the passage was neither good about it nor bad about it. It said be cautious, be cautionary about what you want to do, and of course use your discretion. So that's the kind of answer I want. Now, the most important thing with AI lies in its technical limitations, since without expanding its computational reach, it will remain incapable of matching human adaptability. No, nothing of this sort was talked about at all. There are so many words which are outside the scope of the passage. A big cross to A, it can never be an answer for us. Public fears about AI are exaggerated. Now this says public fears जो कर रहे हैं AI को लेकर बहुत exaggerate कर रहे हैं वो लोग. मतलब इतना है नहीं जितना hype बना रहे. It's not again हम लोग ने hype जैसा word use किया था पैसे में, but वो fears के लिए नहीं था. It was about the role of AI. So ये तो गलत बात हो गई ना. इसको यहीं पे छोड़ दो. This is a wrong option. The significance of AI extends beyond its mechanical utility, demanding scrutiny for how it shapes reasoning patterns, ethical orientation, and cultural judgment. You talk about the significance of AI and then you say it extends beyond. So the good and the bad both have been taken into account, definitely, and talks about how we are having a cultural change also because of AI. Make sense? The trajectory of AI will eventually align with human recognition, and once it replicates human modes of thought, the problem of its social influence will naturally diminish. Okay, we didn't talk about how it is going to be able to, take shape of the human thought as well. In fact, the problem was that it will never act like a human. It will never have that vulnerability that humans have. So the correct answer becomes option C. Next. Which of the following example perfectly echoes with the author's assertion? So when you're trying to echo with something, it means you have to do a parallel reasoning. You have to find which of the following is correct now. Change, blindness, and fast adaptation of technology can mean we are not fully aware of the cultural and value shift. So we'll see which of the following is change blindness, that we are being blind to change. Things have changed, but we are not saying anything, and we are adapting faster. ये दोनों aspects होने हैं, and इससे cultural shift होना है. Let's start. Earlier, returning item was rare and seen as wasteful, but fast e-commerce policies normalized frequent returns. Speed बढ़ा थोड़ा सा, shifting consumer attitude towards disposability without many recognizing the cultural change has now become a part of the culture. Everybody has to go back. So obviously we have there's been a change. We've been blinded to that change because gradually उसने इतना convenience दिया कि हमने कहा यार ये तो chill काम है, तो बढ़िया इसको कर लेते. Definitely going on to the same pattern. Let's reserve A. People continuously debate about the changing attitudes of work and service in the post. Okay, there is nothing of adaptation. There is nothing which is around the idea of change blindness. So this can't be an answer. Many households adopt voice assistants like Alexa and Google Home, but users openly joke or even worry about being listened to. Now again, there is no adaptation here. And then there is, of course, no cultural shift that has happened here. Can't be my answer. While AI navigation might subtly alter habits, the very idea of the car driving itself has provoked intense cultural and ethical debate. Okay, now that is there, but now there is no change blindness. And change blindness has to be things have changed, but this is something we've embraced. So we've been very conscious about this change. So this can't be an answer again. The correct answer becomes option A. Let's try the next. Which of the following is the best follow-up question for the author? Now, what is after the last line of the passage, what is it that you'd wish to add to it? Let's go. Because last idea kya tha? We ended the last idea on whether it is good or bad. We are still, opening, that is still loose-ended. We need to tie those ends there. And ultimately, AI has to be used consciously. Now, if human recognition and AI can operate on such different principles, should education systems be, okay, we have not talked about education system. It's a mandatory pair that we have to add. That's a completely different idea. Since societies have already accepted profound technological change in the past, is it reasonable to assume that they will also adapt successfully to the shift? No, it's not about the society successfully doing it, because throughout the passage we were contentious on both sides. Right? We were like about the good and the bad. So that's the kind of angle we want to continue on. No. Considering that public fears about the AI are often exaggerated by media narratives, okay, let's third option, because how are we एकदम से कैसे कूद के हम लोग ने media narratives पे बात कर लिया? That also can't be. If AI simultaneously enhances efficiency and risk eroding human judgment, what measures can be taken so that its integration does not undermine cultural values? Culture वाली बात हो रही थी, and we wanted something which is going to talk about both the good and the bad. The only one option that we have, our answer becomes option D. I hope you are absolutely convinced with that. Let's go to the next. The author makes all of the following assumptions except. Tell me the one that is false. Assumption is what is the one information that is taken for granted. Human intellectual abilities are not permanently resilient and may diminish if they are outsourced to external systems. Yes, इसीलिए AI को देने में, AI को काम कराने में वो skeptical है. ये तो true assumption है, तो ये नहीं हो सकता. Human societies possess a stable set of values that remain unchanged regardless of technological. No, this is a wrong assumption because at this point of time, passage में हमारे cultural values and ethos change हो रहे हैं. तो ये तो मेरा आंसर ही बन गया. Technological innovations invariably alter societal attitude and practices in a way that we are not consciously observed. बिल्कुल सही बात है. This is true, can't be my answer. People's handling of personal information is inconsistent and does not always reflect considered judgment. ये भी बात सही है. This is also something that is true, can't be my answer. Which means the correct answer by default becomes option B. And with that, we come to an end to the first passage. Let's get on to the next passage now. Now, this is about philosophy. The Hungarian folktale are folklores, जो पुरानी चली आ रही है, some stories, some things which have cultural, cultural anchoring. That is what becomes a folklore. So, एक Hungarian folktale, a pretty maid, Ibronka, terrified and tantalized me as a child. So, this folklore was pretty scary for the author. In the story, the young Ibronka must tie herself to the devil with strings in order to discover important. She's supposed to tie herself with the devil to be able to find important truths. These days, as a PhD student in philosophy, I sometimes worry I've done the same. And the author is like, okay, I think I've also done the same. She's worried about it. I still believe in philosophy's capacity to seek truth, but I'm conscious that I have tethered myself to an academic heritage plagued by formidable demons. अब metaphorically बोल दिया, असली demons तो नहीं हो सकते, but yes, there have been some formidable demons for which as a PhD student she understands that, so these are like some flaws or some evils that are innate, and that is what she has etched herself to. The demons of academic philosophy come in familiar guises. They're very familiar, namely exclusivity, hegemony, and investment in the myth of individual genius. So they are namely three: exclusivity, that it's very exclusive. The fact that, it's a myth that this individual genius and he's the one who's, done these eureka things, and hegemony, and then, they sort of rule. So these are the kinds of things that are they are the most scariest demons of the academic philosophy. Philosophy has been slower to change than many of its sister disciplines in the humanities. It may be surprise to many given that theology and certainly religious studies tend to be inclusive, but philosophy is the most resistant towards including diverse voices. It's a little surprising, but yes, philosophy is slow and philosophy is resistant in nature. Simultaneously, philosophy has grown increasingly specialized due to the pressure of professionalism, and in fact, it has become more civilized. So earlier, maybe, it could just spread its wings to every nook and corner of thought, but now it is not supposed to be like that. Academics zeros is on narrower and narrower topics in order to establish unique niches, and in the process, what was once a discipline that sought answers to humanity's most fundamental questions becomes a jargon-riddled puzzle for the narrow gap of insiders. So now what is happening? They've all zeroed down to ye zaruri hai, ye nahi. And अब उसके terminologies बन गए. And now what happens is anybody who's approaching philosophy is just sort of, he's filtering down to these jargons and trying to be knowing what the meaning of these are. In recent years, canon expression has been a hot button topic as philosophers increasingly find the exclusivity in the field antithetical to its universal aspiration. Recent years में something which is called a canon expansion. Now it has become a hot button topic, मतलब बड़ा controversial सा हो गया है. Philosophers are increasingly finding the exclusivity of the field, that is, ये बड़ा exclusive था, antithetical to the universal aspirant. So antithetical becomes anything that is now the opposite of ethics. So they find that this is opposite to what philosophy offers, which is universality. As J. Garfield remarks, it is as irrational to ignore everything not written in the Eurosphere as it would be to only read philosophy published on Tuesday. So it's like if everybody has written, it should be something that's made available to everybody, not that you're picking up philosophy only on Tuesday. So ये limiting जो कर दिया है ना philosophy को, that is what is being criticized. And yet academic philosophy largely has done just that, and that's the sad part. Academic philosophy ने यही कर दिया है. It is only in the past few decades that the mainstream has begun to engage seriously with the work of women and non-Western thinkers. It has only been the past few weeks that, we've started to do something about it. Often, This endeavor involves looking beyond the confines of what historically has been called philosophy. And to be able to do this, you have to look outside. You have to crane your neck up and look outside the realm of philosophy. Expanding the canon generally isn't so simple as resurfacing a standard philosophical treatise in the style of a white male contemporary that happens to have been written by someone outside this demographic. And then when you expand, it's not a very easy job. It's not as easy as किसी white man ने लिख लिया उसकी acceptability हो गई है. Sometimes this does happen, as in the case of Margaret Cavendish, whose work has attracted increased recognition in the recent years. कभी-कभी हो भी जाता है ये. But Cavendish was the Duchess of Newcastle, a royalist whose political theory criticizes social mobility as a threat to social order. She had access to instructions that were highly unusual for women outside her background, which lends her work a standard style and structure. But then she's just trying to add, she was a royalist. She had a very different thought process maybe altogether, but there were a lot of other things that made it to her acceptance. To find voices beyond this elite, we have to often look beyond this style and structure. And because she's an elite, she got noticed. What about the others? You will have to look beyond it as well. Texts formerly classified as squarely theological have been among the first to attract significant renewed interest. So all of these that are fairly theological, theo is God. God wale zyada attractive ho jate. Female Catholic writers such as Teresa of Avila or Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, whose work had been largely ignored outside theological circles, are now being re-examined through the philosophical lens. But ये theologist है ना, इनका काम फिर भी आ रहा है. अभी सबको नई acceptance मिला है, इनको philosophical angle में फिर से इनका काम देखा जा रहा है. Likewise, philosophy departments are gradually including more work by Buddhist philosophers such as Dignaga and Ratnakirti, whose epistemological contribution have been of special recent interest. Buddhist philosophers को भी अब embrace कर रहे हैं. Such thinkers may now sit on syllabi alongside Augustine and Aquinas, who despite their theological bent have long been considered worthy, and now they have also been elevated to the title of these two worthy men and gotten the philosophical spotlight. On the topic of worthiness, I am wary of using the term philosophy as an honorific. So the author is like, now that we're talking about worthy, is philosophy really supposed to have that pedestal? It is crucial that our interest is expanding. The canon does not involve the implications that the philosophical confers a degree of rigor over the theology, literacy, etc. To do so would be so to engage in a myopic and uninteresting debate over academic borders. So he says that our interest in expanding this is still not found recognition, right? To be able to do so, if they're going to think that, oh, you're very myopic, you're very uninteresting altogether. My motivating question is not what the label of philosophy can confer upon these texts, but what these texts can bring to philosophy. So he's like, you have to understand what these can do to philosophy, not what they are going to be doing. If philosophy seeks insight into the nature of such universal topics as reality, mortality, art and knowledge, it must seek input from those beyond the narrow few. अगर इन words के आगे पीछे आप philosophical angles को डाल रहे हो, तो इन narrow words के outside भी जाओ और देखो, philosophy has a lot to offer. Okay, with that, let's get to the questions. All of the following can be inferred except, again, give me the one which is going to be false. And inferences from the said about the unsaid. Let's see which of the following can we not infer. If philosophy continues to confine itself to narrow European traditions, it risks undermining its claim to universal. Obviously, यूरोप के ही टर्मिनोलॉजीज में और उन्हीं के लोगों के साथ रहेगी तो ऑब्वियसली यूनिवर्सैलिटी वाला एंगल खत्म हो जाएगा. तो हमने बात किया था, ये तो ट्रू है. Can't be my answer. The distinction between philosophy, theology, and literature has always been more porous than academic boundaries suggest. Yes, it has always been more permeable. That is also something that's been talked about. This is true, can't be my answer. Incorporating thinkers from diverse tradition reshapes the very identity of philosophy rather than simply enlarging its syllabus. Very well. Last page, second last paragraph, ये पूरी बात हो रही थी. True, not my answer. I think elimination से आगे answer. Once philosophy integrates women and non-European voices, the challenge of inclusivity will be resolved. अरे, ये तो कहीं बोला ही नहीं था उन्होंने कि ये भी करोगे तो हो जाएगा. I think this was the odd one out, and it was very easy for us to know that this is what is likely to be the answer. Which of the following keyword would best encapsulate? So pick your protagonist. Should be the kind of words जिसको पढ़ते ही आ जाए कि क्या passage बोलने की कोशिश कर रहा है. Authority, tradition, orthodoxy. I want philosophy. Philosophy was the main crux. Philosophy पे ही नहीं है तो क्या है? I think उसी basis पे तो सभी निकल गए फिर. Philosophy, inclusivity, canon expansion. Canon over here is going to be terminology. So the correct answer becomes B. Which of the following is the main idea of the passage? Which is that one option that takes everything into account? The true measure of inclusivity in philosophy lies in how alternative traditions enrich the pursuit of inquiry rather than the mere extension of the label philosophy. Excellent. I think this takes into account everything. Let's reserve this. Because main idea na sab padenge. The rediscovery of female, okay, isko idhar hi rok dete. This is paracentric. Passage was just not about the female and the non-Europeans. तो इसको आगे ये सही हो गलत हो मुझसे कोई मतलब नहीं है, ये बन ही नहीं सकता मेरा आंसर. The professionalization of academic philosophy has fragmented its scope into insular puzzles which have contributed to the lack of inclusivity. There is an angle of, professionalism, but that was only in the first page, second paragraph. That's it. How can that be the main idea? Main ideas are a lot of scenes making a movie. You tell me the story of the movie. How is this possible? Let's chuck this off. Theological and literary writings deserve to be incorporated into the canon because they reflect styles and ideas comparable to established philosophical. Okay, we're not doing a course of action here. We have to look for a main idea. So I think hands down, everybody might have already had this as an answer. The answer becomes A. And the last one, which of the following is a caveat the author gives about inducting more inclusivity in philosophy, right? So which of the following is going to be a caveat? Now, caveat is what is the one thing we need to be aware of while inducting more inclusivity? Now, the pursuit of diversity must not turn into an attempt to reclassify theological and literary works merely to elevate them under the banner of philosophy, but instead must focus on how much such work can genuinely deepen philosophical inquiry. Yes, it shouldn't be कि बस मुझे कुछ करना है तो कर दे रहे. कुछ ऐसा करो जो meaningfully उसको expand करे philosophy के scope को. Very much an answer. This is a caveat. This is what you have to be careful about. Just because inclusivity nahi ho rahi hai, to kuch bhi nahi karna hai. Let's keep this. Broadening the canon requires uncovering long forgotten manuscripts that perfectly mirror the stylistic conventions. Okay, now we do not want manuscripts. It's about being able to embrace the thought process of others. So clearly this can't be. Recognizing women and non-European voices is sufficient to achieve inclusive. Is sufficient to include? Okay, no. That's not what it is. That also can't be a caveat. The introduction of Buddhist and Catholic thinkers into syllabi signals the completion of inclusivity, leaving. Okay, this I think is again two-way. So the correct answer does become option A. And with that, we come to an end. I hope you guys had superb fun solving these two amazing passages. And this is what these genres have to offer. Make sure that you are studying so that you know what it seems to be talking about. I will see you guys very soon. Thank you so much, everybody.